All right, we're going to do this kind of on the fly. I'm not drinking beer today because I got to go to work. Anyway, thank you for coming back to my shitty YouTube channel. We're going to talk about the Light Fighter Challenge 2024, or Light Fighter 4, and talk about my experience. So this is now a little over a week past when Light Fighter was done. I would say about 4 days ago, I finally was no longer sore in my legs and my hips, so I'm back to 100% now. The Ruck March was a little bit more than I was expecting, which is fine because I was in condition, so it's my fault. All right, so Light Fighter 2024 was awesome. I think it was way better than last year, and hopefully next year it's going to be even better. So I will start off with how my whole experience went. So I showed up Friday night. I camped out. There was good food, good fellowship, and good fire, like nice good big bonfire that we were having, and it was great. Slept in the back of my vehicle in my little sleeping bag, my little sleep pad. Very cozy and very comfortable. I actually ended up waking up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Not because I was cold, but I think it was because I was excited. So I ended up going back up to the fire pit, making some coffee, stoking the fire back again, and kind of just waited for the day to start. So my Light Fighter day started around, I guess it was more like 3:20. So anyway, right around 5 a.m. or so, the camp was kind of starting to get a little bit more active as people were waking up. Check-in began at 5:30, and then by 5:30, everybody was awake and, drinking some water and having a little bit of breakfast and getting lined up to weigh in packs. So we weighed in packs between 6 o'clock and 6:30, and then by 6:30, they were bussing people out to the start point of the Ruck March. The Ruck March did not begin at the long shot ammo or long shot range. I forget the name of the company, the long shot range. So we actually went into town. We started off in town, and then we rucked through town and then got on a rail trail. And the rail trail took us back to the road, which then took us back to the range. And then from there we picked up our weapons and then continued through the rest of the long shot, like property, I guess. And then we landed back at the start, right now at the finish point, which is where the weigh-in and check-in was. So we didn't have our weapons for the first go because we're going to be in a built-up area. We don't want to be freaking anybody out, walking around with weapons and stuff. But yeah, for the majority of it, we didn't have our weapons, and once we got back to like the training area, then it all began. So I need a pointer. Use a screwdriver. All right. So the whole thing began. All right. So after the Ruck March, we got back to the start point, which was this little blue dot right here. This is a horrible camera angle. So this was the start point right here. You had 1, 2, and 3 stations. These were the 3 shooting stations. You had 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These were all the other stations. I don't know if you can read if it's backwards or not. But essentially what you got to do is once you checked in after the Ruck March is you could pick and choose which one of these stations you wanted to go to. So if there was like a log jam at the shooting, you could jump down and go do fire starting or any of the other ones. So I'll just read out what the stations were. So you had shooting. The first shooting stage was shooting 20 rounds. The second shooting stage was shooting 30 rounds, and the third shooting stage was shooting 10 rounds. Shooting 20 rounds was going to be 10 standing and 10 kneeling. You had 5 minutes to do it. I think from what I heard from most people is everybody shot all 20 rounds within a minute and a half. Everybody was rushing. I did the exact same thing, and that was probably my worst shooting event. So the idea there was to get in that Zen state and shoot accurately. The shooting 30 it was like you had a low crawl between barricades, and you had to fire 10 rounds, drop your mag, hand it back to the safety officer, crawl up to the next barricade. He'd give you your mag back, you'd load again, you'd shoot another 10. And then you get up to a vehicle, at which point you could get up and shoot from any position on the vehicle you wanted. And then the shooting 10 was it was a left and right moving target. So you had a no shoot target, then you had your target, and then you had a no shoot target. So, and then the idea was that you would move laterally back and forth, firing at the shoot target without hitting the no shoot targets. If you hit one of them, that was bad. And then any ammo that you had left over in your magazine or your rifle, those counted as misses. And then if you didn't hit the thoracic cavity on the shoot target, those were counted as misses. So no surprise to me, the shooting was the worst stage that I performed at, because I have not devoted enough time to shooting this past year. So anyway, all right. So after that, then we went down to fire starting, which was down here. This was the fire starting stage down here. So these were shooting. We bypassed the shooting and went right down to fire starting because everybody wanted to go shoot first. So we did fire starting. Thank God fire starting was a lot better than last year. The weather was better, and then the terms of the conditions of the that station were a lot better. So they handed you like a little 1x2 piece of really dry pine wood or whatever, and they said use your knife to break it down, and then use your own matches. You weren't allowed to use a lighter or a ferro rod or anything like that. They said you can use your knife and your own matches, and you had to build a fire inside of a Dakota fire hole, and then there was a little string of one of the guts of a 550 quarter running across it. Yeah, build a fire enough to get it burned out. I don't know how long I did it, but the guy said it was pretty fast, so kudos to me. That's pat myself on the shoulder for that. Excuse me. After that, I forget where we went after that. We went up to number 4, which was the axe throw. So the axe throw was run by Martin from Mossy Forge. He came up with a really fun scenario where you had a little piece of dry wood about, I don't know, maybe about 1.5 inches to 2 inches in diameter. And he said, all right, like your scenario is you just took down a doe deer, and you got to like break the pelvis down, and then you got to lug it out to your truck. So it was kind of cool. So I used my axe. He had axes that you could use. I had a bit of an advantage because my axe had a significantly longer handle and a much broader head, so it was heavier. So I was able to use 2 hands on my axe and split through that piece of wood in like one swing. Really broke it all, and then the second swing was just to clear it. But it was nice because I was able to get 2 hands on it and really get a lot of force. A lot of guys were using the little hatchets that they provided, and you had to like do it the technical way where you create the wedge. I just brute force through it. So then you had to retain your axe. You had to pick up a duffel bag that weighed about 80 pounds. You could either drag it or throw it over your shoulder. You had to go around a marker, which was probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 yards away from where you put the bag down, maybe a little bit more. You had to bring it back around, throw it in the back of Martin's pickup truck, and then to come back over to the throwing point, and you had to throw your axe at the target. If you got your axe to stick from the throw, you got a 5-second deduction. If you threw it and it bounced off, you'd have to run up and then grab your axe and then stick it into the wood to stop the time. So I got my one throw, I got my 5-second deduction, and I was pretty proud of that. So after that, we went up to station number 5. So we went from fire starting up to the axe throw up to station number 5. Now I will say we took this road right here, but this road right here coming up is like a 30 35-degree incline over, I don't know how long that is, maybe 200 meters or so. This is a huge ridge line up here. So we had to climb straight up, and that took forever. I was gassed. And then we got up to station number 5, which was the Commando crawl. Commando crawl was the same event that they had last year, or I think in the same spot too. Essentially, you have a large rope, probably about 2 inches in diameter, that's strung between 2 trees. At about chest or shoulder high, you got to get up on top of the rope and then like shimmy across, either on your belly or on your stomach. The catch this year was, because the weather was great, is you had to go down into this really deep draw and then come out of the draw to get up to where the rope was. And all that was just like to make you tired by the time that you got up. So you had to do that. You had to go down into the draw with your ruck, come back up out of the draw with your ruck. And it was steep enough that you could like kind of lay down and slide down the draw. So going down was no problem, but coming back up, it was a bit of a pain. So you get up there, you drop your ruck, and then you climb onto the rope, and you either go across on your belly or you go across hanging underneath it. I tried to go across on my belly. I rolled, and then I was able to finish underneath. The rule was that if you fell, but you still kept your hands on the rope and you were able to swing your feet back up, that they would allow it. So that was nice. So you had to crawl, I don't know, maybe 10 feet or so on the rope. You had to touch a little dangling piece of 550 cord to say you finished. So that was cool. Then after that, we went up to number 8, which was knot tying. So they had a series of knots that you had to tie. You had a picture and the name of the picture, and then all you had to do was tie the knot that was on there. I am ashamed to say that I tied my bowline backwards. Instead of having like the running end and your working end, I got it wrong. That was probably the biggest disappointment of the day, is that I messed up one of the most basic knots. So I got a deduction for that. I think I tied a Swiss seat. I made an attempt at the bowline. As soon as I handed it to the grader, I knew it was wrong. And I was like, that's backwards. And he goes, yep, it's backwards. So that was a bummer. I tied a Prusik, and I think I was so disappointed in the bowline, I just did like a figure 8 on a bite and called it a day. So knot tying, that was there. And then the last event that we did, or not the last, the next one that we did was the crossbow. They just had like a old-fashioned wooden frame crossbow with 3 bolts, and you shot it at a target like 15 feet away. And if you got all 3 on the target, then you passed. It was a little trickier than I thought, just because, I don't know, I never shot a crossbow before. All right, then after that, we ended with the 3 shooting stages. We went shooting stage 3, 2, 1. So we did, the first one we did was stage 3, where you had 10 rounds to shoot from standing and kneeling. I botched that one real bad. I think I only got like 2 hits inside of the 10 ring, which is, they're only counting hits in the 10 ring on an NRA circular bullseye target. I only got 2 in the 10 ring, and I think I had like a few that were in the white, but then the rest were in the black. So like all my shots hit the paper. We were shooting from, I think, I don't know, I forget, 50 meters maybe? I think it was 50 meters. I could be wrong. Anyway, all my shots were on paper, so that's kind of cool. But still, I rushed it. So, oh well. Then we did the 10. You had to shoot 10. So you had to like move back and forth as you were shooting. I didn't do too hot on that. I think I had 2 misses from the rounds that I shot. I didn't hit any of the no-shoots, but I had 2 that were outside of the thoracic cavity. And then I had something stupid like 5 rounds left in my mag. So those are all counted as misses. That was bad. And then I did really well on the low crawl and shooting from the prone for 30 rounds. I only had 1 miss on that. So that was right. And that was it. Those are all the stations. It was a lot of fun. We were really tired by the time we got done. I took my time on the Ruck. I didn't take my time. I decided that I was going to kind of stay toward the back of the pack. One, because I knew I wasn't conditioned to be really pushing myself hard, and I don't want to get hurt. And 2, I linked up with a young kid. It was I don't know if it was his first time or his second time doing the light fighter. He was 14 years old, and I just kind of found that the group that I was walking in, as he was there with us, and he ended up being a really, really nice, good kid. And we ended up doing the whole challenge together. I said, well, listen, like, you're my battle buddy today, so I'm going to wait for you, but you also got to keep up with me. And we kind of pushed each other. There was a few times where, like, I was really gassed out, and he came over and, like, busted my balls a little bit, like, come on, old man. It was funny. So yeah, it was nice to spend the day with him. We linked up with some of my other buddies too once we got to the stages. But yeah, the kid that I linked up with, he said his goal was to not be last in the Ruck March, and he wasn't. So it was good. There was a few hills that we were on where, like, you could just see, like, he had the quit in his eyes, and he was like, I'm done. But he never quit, despite being a little maybe not fully conditioned up and a little dehydrated, but the fact that he didn't quit was awesome. So if you're watching, you know who you are, and I'm proud of you, and you did a really good job. All right, so let's talk about my chest rig. I made a few Instagram posts about it, but the overall performance of the chest rig at the Light Fighter Challenge was awesome. It was extremely comfortable. It was useful. The pouch configuration that I had was great. And I got this sick patch from one of my buddies there. So thank you. You know who you are, sir. Really appreciate it. But yeah, so I used the admin pouch for admin things. I kept my my little map that they gave you here. That was stored in here. My Sharpie and all the other stuff. And then this pouch over here, I had to put rocks in it because since you weren't allowed to carry ammo, the weight on this thing was weird. Like, all the weight is in the back with the 2 Nalgene's here. So I just stuck rocks right here. And then I filled this with like Cliff Bars and gummies and other lickies and chewies. So, but yeah, other than that, obviously I didn't use anything like in the pockets. The gloves that I normally keep in this pocket migrated to the front pocket on my my pants. And then I did use the headlamp for a little bit while we got out to the start point, but it got light before we started, so I was able to put that away. The Mora knife, thank you to the person who corrected me on the pronunciation. The Mora knife worked great, extremely sharp, had no problem using it as a baton or batoning the knife down into the wood. Obviously the wood was really soft and dry, so there really wasn't much resistance, but it worked out fine. And then I would say I really only drank out of this Nalgene. This is my go-to one because it has the canteen cup in here, so it stays open. I ended up drinking one Nalgene. This one's still full, and then I had a Gatorade bottle and a water bottle, which I kept up in these 2 pouches, and then I drank all of my my water from my 2-quart canteen on my Ruck, which we'll get into that. Because it was a cool, it was a cool fall day. The breeze was going. We really didn't profusely sweat, so you didn't have that like crazy thirst. But I was proud of myself. I stayed hydrated. I was peeing all the time, which was good. And yeah. Oh, somebody posted on the 34 Alpha video that they were disappointed that I didn't test to see if a beer fits inside of the spud pouches. Well, this isn't a beer, but it's about the same size, and that fits snugly into the pouch. And I bet you if you had a tall boy, that would still fit too. So there's your answer. All right, so anyway, yeah, I love the chest rig. Some notes that I discovered about the chest rig. So when I was originally thinking about this and how I was going to integrate it with the Alice Ruck that I had, I said, well, you know, the Alice Ruck doesn't have a kidney belt. And I said, well, that's fine. I'll just tighten down the waist part of the LBE around my waist, and then that will transfer the weight from the ruck down onto my butt pack and thus down into my hips. What I didn't account for was the position of this belt system on my hips as opposed to the position of a kidney belt on a rucksack. So the LBE sits lower on my hips than a normal kidney belt would. I'll put it on, I'll show you. The top of my hip is about here, where my index finger is. The iliac crest of your hip is about an inch underneath the top of the LBE. Where a kidney belt would be is going to be above the iliac crest. Everybody knows what the iliac crest is. It's this bone at the top of your hip. So because the majority of the tension from this LBE wraps on my hips and kind of takes my hips and pushes them in as opposed to resting on the top of the bowl of your hips, I found it was extremely uncomfortable to have the weight of the ruck sitting laterally on my hips instead of loading the weight down onto the top of my hips. So that was one thing that I noticed. And I'm going to have to figure out how to play around with that. But basically, in a nutshell, with the LBE around the lower part of my hips, like, you know, where most, you know, like cool dudes wear their pants kind of lower, it was crushing my hips inward, and that caused a lot of lateral pain in my hips, as opposed to sitting higher where a kidney belt is and it pushes down on the top of your hips. I think you guys get the point. So I'll have to figure that out. And then the other thing with the LBE, I'll put this back on, is when I was climbing hills, I didn't have a full range of motion because, as you can see, when I lift my leg up and not hit the table, when I lift my leg up, so I'm not at a full 90 degrees yet, and my leg is already hitting the bottom of my pouch. So when you're leaning forward and you're trying to get your leg up a hill because you're leaning into the hill, I found that I had extremely reduced range of motion in my legs. So one day I'm doing it for most of the hilly parts was just undoing my LBE so that way I could get my legs up and climb hills. So I spent most of the ruck with my LBE open. All right, so that's the LBE. I used my own light fighter axe for the axe challenge, and that was awesome. I think I already told you about that. And the rifle that I carried is my OG rifle. This is a Smith & Wesson M&P 15T, T for tactical, super cool. I have Magpul furniture. I got a better charging handle on it. This is a Burris RT6 LPVO, and then the Burris like rapid fire red dot on top. I didn't end up using the red dot. I used the LPVO for all the shooting stages. It's a 1 to 6 magnification. So obviously for the moving portion, I kept it on one power. When I was shooting the longer distances, I had it on 6 power. And then for the low crawling stage and the barricades, I kept it on 1 power. The ammo I was shooting was 62 grain green tip was a M855, I think. Yeah, M855, 62 grain. And yeah, so that was my rifle. You had to bring some ear pro. So I just decided to go full out, and I brought my CVC conversion helmet thing with my ear pro. It was the first time that I shot with the helmet on since I got out of the Army. And it worked fine. I was actually able to, while we were waiting in line to shoot, I was able to take a nap wearing my helmet so that I still have my ear pro on. So yeah, I got a video on how I made this, the CVC conversion. All right, so then what else? What else did I have? Boots. Where did I put my boots? The boots I wore were Salomon Quest Forces Gore-Tex. I like the Salomon boots. The width on them is good for me. I'd much rather prefer to have Gore-Tex than not. I know that adds a little bit of weight, and some folks say your feet get hot or whatever. Wear wool socks, and it'll probably be not as bad. I didn't have any problems with my feet at all. So that was cool. So Solomon's. And then the pants that I wore were the Fjallraven Vita. They're not the Vita Pros, but you know, everybody knows what Fjallraven pants look like. So I wore those. I've kept them zipped up for the beginning of the ruck. It was about 30, I guess it was about 34 when we stepped off. And by the time we finished, it was almost 60 degrees. So those side zips came in real handy. All right, so let's talk about the content of my ruck. On the outside, I have, well, hang on. First, the whole ruck that I carried was your Alice ruck, okay? The Alice Large. On the outside, it had a 2-quart canteen and an e-tool, because every foot soldier needs their e-tool. I had a rain jacket. I had a sleeping pad. Move this out of the way. Sleeping pad, rain jacket, 2-quart canteen, and I had, in the smaller pockets, what is this? Big chunk of batteries, chunk of 550 cord, and my iPro is also in here, but that's, I don't know where the hell that went. I had my water filtration system. It's just a gravity bag with a Sawyer inline on it. A Sawyer Mini that's inline on it. Had all that stuff. And then the bulk of it I kept in this dry bag. So inside the dry bag, I have BDU top. I have a bunch of food. We'll talk about the food in a second. I had extra clothes, hygiene kit. Oh. Oh my God. Good thing I'm not in a rush. This is the Snug Pack Jungle Bag. And then this is just your USGI bivy bag. So when I was packing for the Ruck, or I was packing for the challenge, I wanted my Ruck to reflect what you would actually need to carry. So that's what I did. I packed like I was actually going to be going out to the field for several days. All right, inside of my personal hygiene kit, bug spray, foot powder, baby wipes, and a little first aid kit with some Advil, liquid Band-Aid, Neosporin, Band-Aids, gauze, disinfectant wipes, moleskin, you know, just little stuff to make you feel your best. That's it. Where's my travel toothbrush? I had a little travel toothbrush that I kept in here, but obviously it's not in there anymore. Oh, all right. Inside the food bag, I have 1, 2, 3 full MREs. Inside this bag is like 2 broken down MREs, a breakfast skillet, Mountain House meal, and then this is a sterno stove. I wanted to test if you could boil 10 ounces of water or 8 ounces of water. 10 ounces of water, so that way you could cook one of these with the sterno so you don't have to carry like a butane stove. And it works. Like if you put like your cup on top of here, it takes a long time to boil it. I think it took like 20 minutes to boil the water, but it got there. I don't know if it's going to work in like much colder temperatures or at higher altitude. When I tested it, it was a couple weeks ago, and so late September in Pennsylvania, and I was able to boil 10 ounces of water, but it took a long time. So maybe a sterno stove is going to be the best option, but that's why we try things. All right, so that was the food I carried in the Ruck. I also had like in my LBE like a shit ton of like Cliff Bars and gummies and stuff like that. Okay, and then lastly in the clothing bag, I'm going to have BDU pants, 1 pair of wool socks, 2nd pair of wool socks, rain pants, and my Wooby hoodie. So that's going to kind of be like my fall setup. Obviously, or this is really more like a summer setup. Now that we're getting into the end of October, I'll probably do a video on like packing for a winter overnight, couple night things. So that was it. Ultimately, I didn't do very well, but that's okay because I didn't get a chance to train very much and I am out of shape. So, but I am glad that I made new friends. I tested stuff out. I found out some weaknesses in me, and I made some new friends. My battle buddy on the Ruck March and the whole thing, you know who you are. Hope to see you next year. And I was fortunate enough to complete the whole thing and came out with the American Light Fighter status. So I didn't get top 10. I placed 17th out of, was it like 32, 35 maybe? So I came in right in the middle, which is cool. I'm fine with that. My objective was to finish. That was my goal. I knew this was going to be a little bit more difficult than last year. So my goal was to finish, and I did. So I got the American Light Fighter patch. That's it. That's my AAR. It's a pretty long video. It's like 35 minutes right now. I'll probably chop that down, and yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and do the sharing and the subscribing stuff, and I'll see you next time.